Well, I am at the wonderful Out in the Garden Nursery with Carol Westergreen. Carol, I love coming out here. It's a beautiful place. It's just right out of Molalla, close in, but it's like the country around here is so pretty, and your nursery is so beautiful.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you here.
And you have lovely plants and always a lovely collection, and I think you are become the geranium queen. So
yes.
Tell us about the geraniums you have.
I had to control myself and only pull 4. So the 2 of them that I pulled, right now they look very much the same because we're not quite into bloom season. This is Geranium Ann Thompson, which will have a big magenta flower. Also, once it starts blooming, it's going to bloom till frost. This one back here is Roseanne, a big purpley blue flower. Same thing. Once they start blooming, they bloom until frost.
Nice.
And they're absolutely amazing. No care. You don't have to cut them back. You don't have to do anything. They'll bloom and bloom and bloom. So I can't say enough about those. They're 2 best geraniums on the market for
and
sure.
It's nice when you don't have to keep on playing with them.
Yes.
I mean, we love to play with our plants, but there's some that they just grow.
They do. They just really go. So then these 2 I brought in just because I'm a foliage person as well as flowers. And this is Orkney Cherry. So it's a little tiny, not a big showy flower, but it's a little bright pink flower. Last year it bloomed all summer long.
Whoa.
So I don't know if that's normal but I'll take it. But if nothing else, this foliage is so pretty all season. It's a real low grower, makes a nice little mat that I just thought that was a really nice one to add to the collection. And then next to it is Kaya that does have a bright blue flower. Ooh. Usually blooms once, but you can cut it back hard and you'll often get a second bloom. But again, it has this little bit of a bronzy to it all
Very
season,
pretty.
which is just a really nice, adds to the foliage for the season.
Well, nice. And this looks similar. I almost thought it was a geranium, but
yeah,
it isn't.
It is. This is an Artemisia. This is Artemisia Jejudo group, and it's one of my favorite plants. I've grown it for years and years and years. Has this beautiful foliage. These plants have been outside all winter.
Whoa.
So the foliage looks that nice. It gets a little beat up in the winter, but generally it looks really nice. It'll make a nice mound, a couple feet across, just a few inches tall, and then has a big tall flower in the summer.
Nice, nice. And a vine. I love that you have some verticality here.
Yeah.
So what's this?
This is really great. This is a little dwarf evergreen clematis or clematis that's called Avalanche. It's much smaller than most. It's 6 to 8 feet. It blooms obviously now. It's a March, April bloomer. This is a young plant. I mean, it will fill this in no time. But it's a really great one for a smaller space, a container. I've seen beautiful ones of these in a small courtyard with a container and a little arbor.
Beautiful.
When it blooms, it's just a cascade. It needs a little help. It doesn't twine like the big ones. It grabs a little bit, but it'll need a little help. But it's totally worth it. It's a beautiful little evergreen.
Pretty. And then you have some low-growing things, it looks like.
I have a couple of things.
Just now.
This is another thing. I love geraniums and I love alliums. And this is actually one of the chive family alliums. This one is sugar melt. It's one of the smaller ones, has a little smaller foliage than some of them. It blooms at about 15 to 18 inches, a little chive type lavender flower.
Cute.
It's very, very lovely. Bees adore it.
Oh, that's
It's
great.
very drought tolerant. Blooms quite a bit of the summer. If you deadhead it, it'll bloom longer. If you don't deadhead it, it still blooms for a good 6 weeks.
Oh.
It's very, very nice.
Good to remember about the pollinators.
Yes.
We want to. And then a nice grass here.
And this is another nice little grass. This is a Discamptia Northern Lights. And it's a nice one because in our climate it's evergreen. The new growth will have a little pinky tone to it. It has this really nice yellow and green, and then here in a few weeks we'll have a little more of a pink tone to it. Then it gets a pretty little grassy head. It's a part to shade versus a full sun too. Full sun is not its friend.
Okay.
But it's nice because it's early and then give it a little bit of summer shade.
Nice. And I think it would be nice in a container too.
It would. It'd be a beautiful container.
These are so shiny. What's this one?
This is an Actea. You're used to seeing the purple ones, the brunette, and some of those. This is, if I can get the name right, Jejudo.
Oh, very good.
It's Japanese, or no, it's Korean actually. But the foliage is beautiful.
Very pretty.
It blooms in the fall. It's got a little white flower. It's not as showy as some of its other kin, but this foliage is so beautiful that I think it's a really nice addition for the shade garden.
Very nice. And another nice little grass here. That's
Well, that's
blooming.
a Lazuli, and that's one that's really underused, I think, too. It's a beautiful evergreen. It's bright gold. Actually, it's fairly low water. It'll take full shade. Has a nice little flower in the spring, but then the foliage is beautiful all year round.
Very nice. And then I love what you talk about the ligularias.
Yes,
What do you call them?
The drama queens.
The drama queens.
And this is a newer ligularia. I've grown it for a couple years. This one's called Barbeque Bananas. It's one of holds its dark color better. The Britt Marie has darker color, but it's not as vigorous. This is a very vigorous plant, but has better, darker color. The more sun you can give them, the better the color is, but of course they don't like the heat. But consistent moisture is the more important thing.
Very pretty. And then I love this one, and this is the single Caria.
Yeah, this is a Caria Japonica. This is golden Guinea. And it's got, well, I mean, look how big the flower is. It's
Yeah.
just bright, and it has this really bright green foliage. They can take sun or shade, although I like them better in the shade. Most people grow them in the shade. They have really nice green stems, which is actually green all winter, so you get some color there. This one's a fairly tall one, up in the 4 to 6 foot range. Blooms heavy in the spring and sporadically the rest of the summer.
Oh. Well, you know, there's just a small part of the collection here at Carol's at Out in the Garden Nursery. So come on out, go to gardentime.tv. We'll click you over their website, get the directions, and come out and see Carol and all of her beautiful plants. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming out.